Tonight, I'm going to share 3 bone-chillingly true forest encounter stories. These bone-chilling stories were submitted anonymously, which means any of them could be true. And in some cases, parts of them absolutely are. A ranger trapped in a forgotten watchtower, surrounded by a cult. 2 friends stalked by a stranger who doesn't give up. And a volunteer who comes face to face with something that shouldn't exist. These are true-style horror stories from the darkest parts of the forest. Sit back, and don't watch this one alone. Turn the lights down, get comfortable, and prepare yourself for a level of tension you might not expect. My name is Elias, and I worked as a forest ranger in Black Pine Woods for just under a year. This story happened last fall, during what was supposed to be a simple week-long assignment at an old fire watchtower. The tower had been shut down for decades, and most rangers avoided it. They always had some excuse: bad foundation, too far from the main post, unstable stairs. But after what I went through, I'm convinced those excuses were just ways to avoid telling the truth. The truth is that the tower had a history tied to a group the locals called the Hollow Man. No one could agree on what they actually were. A cult, a group of vagrants, a family gone insane. But everybody I talked to said the same thing: don't go to the tower at night. Of course, that's exactly where I was assigned. I arrived on a cloudy afternoon. The tower looked wrong. It was tall, maybe 40 feet high, built in the 60s. But all the wood had carvings in it: circles, slashes, stick figures with holes for faces. I assumed it was vandalism from hikers, but there were just too many markings. Hundreds, maybe more. Inside, the air smelled like dust and old smoke. The place felt lived in, but by something that didn't live there anymore. I set up my gear, logged my arrival in the station book, checked the radio, and settled in. My shift was supposed to last 7 days. After the first night, I knew I wouldn't last that long. It started around 10 p.m. I looked out the window, scanning the woods with binoculars. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but between the trees and the darkest patches, I saw figures standing perfectly still. They were wearing long, dark clothing, like cloaks. Maybe 5 or 6 silhouettes at first, then 9, then more. None of them moved, not even their heads. I told myself it was shadows or trees, or my eyes playing tricks. Then one of them raised an arm and pointed straight at the tower. I dropped the binoculars. After that, I locked the door. Around midnight, I heard footsteps on the metal stairs leading up to the tower. The steps were slow and heavy. I thought maybe it was another ranger, someone checking on me. But when I opened the door, no one was there, and the footsteps stopped instantly. I closed the door, locked it again, and didn't sleep. The next morning, I found something I didn't notice before: a small wooden drawer nailed shut under the desk. I pried it open. Inside was a folded note, written by the ranger who used the tower last. The ranger who disappeared. It said, "They don't climb the tower to reach you. They climb it to push you over. Don't let them inside." That was it. I considered leaving then and there, but my truck was 2 miles away, and radio service was awful. I convinced myself it was all paranoia and pulled myself together. The second night was worse. I set up a camera on the stairs, facing downward, just to prove to myself the footsteps were nothing. I kept watch from inside the cabin. Around 1 a.m., the figures returned to the tree line. This time there were more of them, maybe 30, maybe 40, all facing the tower, all still. And around 1:30 a.m., the footsteps came back, slower than the night before and heavier. This time they didn't stop. They climbed all the way to the top of the staircase. Metal creaked under their weight. The doorknob turned once slowly. I didn't breathe. Then the footsteps retreated back down the stairs. I waited until sunrise before checking the camera. I wish I never did. The footage showed a tall man wearing a carved wooden mask climbing the stairs. His movements were stiff, mechanical, and every few steps he would tilt his head toward the camera. When he reached the top, he paused and stared directly into the lens. shorts. His mask had hollow eyes, completely black. Then he turned the doorknob, but something made him stop. He turned to face the woods and walked back down. My heart dropped. I packed my things immediately and prepared to leave at first light. But when I looked outside, I saw something that froze me in place. The cult, the Hollow Men, had surrounded the tower. Dozens of them, standing in a perfect circle around the base. None of them moved, but some of them were holding torches. Others held carved masks at their sides, and all of them were looking up at me. I stepped away from the window and crouched behind the desk. My radio wasn't working, just static. My phone had no signal. I remember the note I found. Don't let them inside. That was the only plan I had. I pushed the desk against the door. I stacked furniture on top of it. I checked the windows twice. And then I heard a sound I still don't understand. Knocking. But it wasn't on the door. It was coming from under the floor. 3 slow knocks. Then a voice whispered, muffled, "Let us up." I didn't answer. Another knock. Then, time to finish the hunt. I backed into the corner of the cabin, clutching a flashlight like a weapon. Then, the tower started to engulf in flames. I broke the window and used the radio's cable as a rope to safe swing to a tree to break my fall. As I swung and jumped, I felt the rope loosen, it got cut, and I instantly dropped. Luckily, I was halfway down when I fell and hit the ground, breaking my arm. But all I cared about was running and hiding. I didn't even realize it broke until later on. From the adrenaline, I ran and hid in bushes and saw the fire engulf the tower and crumble. And I saw them looking for me. Fortunately, they never found me. Then, the cult was gone. Every single one of them. I ran all the way to my truck. I never went back. The tower is still there. The carvings are still there. And if you ask any ranger about the Hollow Men, they'll pretend not to know what you're talking about. But if you ask them about the tower, they'll tell you the same thing. Don't go there at night. My name is Jordan, and what I'm about to tell you happened in the summer of 2021. I wasn't a big outdoors person, but my friend Micah convinced me to go camping with him in the Ridgewater Forest, which was about 2 hours from our town. Micah camped all the time. I didn't, but he said the trail was popular, safe, and close to other campsites. Looking back, that was the biggest lie either of us told ourselves. We got to the trail around 3 p.m., hiked a couple miles in, found a clearing with a fire pit already built, and set up our tents. Everything felt normal, peaceful, but around 8 p.m., when the sun started dropping, the forest got too quiet. No insects, no birds, not even wind, just silence. Micah joked that it was movie-type silence, the kind that means something bad is coming. I laughed, but I felt something off, like we weren't alone. We roasted some food, talked for a bit, then went to our tents around 10. My tent was closer to the tree line. Micah's was about 10 feet away from mine. We said goodnight, zipped the tents, and that was that. Or so I thought. It started with footsteps. Around maybe 1 a.m., I woke up to leaves crunching somewhere near the tree line. I figured it was Micah going to use the bathroom, but the footsteps didn't sound like someone walking around camp. They sounded like someone circling my tent. Slow, deliberate, dragging their feet. I whispered, "Micah." No answer. The footsteps stopped directly behind my tent, maybe a foot away from my head. I could hear breathing, slow, heavy like someone with cold lungs. That's when I realized whoever was out there had been watching us. I tried to convince myself it was an animal, but then I heard a sound that made my skin turn to ice. A man's voice. Low, whispering. "You awake in there?" I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The man chuckled quietly. Like he was amused I didn't answer. He walked to the front of my tent and pressed his hand against the fabric. I saw all 5 fingers through the thin material. He said, "I've been waiting for you two to fall asleep." My heart just stopped. I reached for my phone to call Micah, but the man suddenly pressed his ear against the tent, inches from my face, and whispered, "Don't move." I froze. Then I heard Micah unzip his tent. He yelled, "Hey, who's out there?" The man immediately backed off from my tent and sprinted into the woods. I burst out of my tent, gasping, shining my flashlight around. But the man was already gone. Micah hadn't seen his face, but he saw a silhouette dart in the trees. Tall, thin, wearing something dark. We grabbed our stuff and decided to hike back to the car using our flashlights. It was about 1.5 miles in the dark, but staying felt worse than leaving. But the man wasn't done with us. About 20 minutes into the hike, Micah stopped and said, "Do you hear that?" I did. Footsteps. Fast ones. Behind us. We turned off our lights and crouched behind a fallen tree. Through the bushes, we saw him. The same man, walking down the trail with a flashlight. He wasn't even looking at the ground. He was looking around, listening. He muttered to himself, over and over, "Where they go, where they go, where they go." Micah and I stayed silent, barely breathing. The man stopped just a few feet from us, still muttering. Then he said loudly, "I know you're close. I can wait." He sat down right in the middle of the trail, and he waited for almost 10 minutes. Then he stood up suddenly and walked off the trail, heading deeper into the trees. Micah whispered, "Go." Slowly, we started moving again, knees shaking, trying to stay on the trail without making noise. And then, maybe 5 minutes later, I felt my stomach drop, because I heard the man again. But this time, he was whispering from the bushes ahead of us. "Found you." He must have cut around the trail. He was trying to hurt us. Micah screamed, "Run." We sprinted down the trail, branches slapping us, flashlights bouncing. The man crashed through the woods behind us, laughing now, not loud, but this awful, breathless laugh like he was having the time of his life. That's when he pulled out a revolver and shot Micah, and when he dropped, I heard the man unload the entire magazine into him. Still, I heard the man laughing breathlessly and screaming, "I'm going to kill you and your family, Jordan." I wondered how he knew my name and saw I dropped my driver's license running, but I didn't care. I finally reached the parking lot. I dove into the car, locked the doors, and peeled out of there. As I drove away, my headlights caught something in the rear-view mirror. The man was standing at the edge of the trailhead, watching me drive off, and shot at me, but fortunately, he only hit one of my tires, so I could still drive. His smile and muzzle flash was the last thing I saw of him. I reported it to the police, and they found Micah's lifeless corpse. He had been shot 3 times in the spine, 2 times in the head, and 2 times in the neck and 1 in his back, but unfortunately nothing ever came of it. No cameras in the woods. No description other than tall man, thin build, and some bullet casings from a stolen Ruger revolver. And the worst part, a ranger told me later on that other campers had reported someone watching their tents in the middle of the night, weeks before we went. They never found him. I still don't camp. I sleep better knowing there are walls, real walls, between me and the outside world. Because somewhere out there is a man who waits outside people's tents, just listening for their breaths. And when he finds you, he doesn't give up. My name is Evan, and this happened in the fall of 2019. I was working as a volunteer spotter during a forest search and rescue simulation at Pine Hollow Reserve. Basically a guided night hike where volunteers pretend to be missing hikers for the rangers to track. I'd done the event twice before, but this year was different. This year, the rangers warned us not to go off the trail. They said it was because the woods had unstable wildlife movement, which made no sense. But they were very serious about it. We started the hike at around 7 p.m. The idea was simple. Walk the marked trail, hide somewhere visible, let the rescuers find you. By 8:30, I've been walking alone for a while, following the glow sticks tied to trees. The forest was unusually dark, the kind of darkness where the trees feel like walls closing in. Then I heard something behind me. Not footsteps, not breathing, branches shaking, hard, like something big was moving between the trees. I turned around, shined my flashlight, and saw nothing. Just trees. I kept walking. The sound followed. Every time I stopped, it stopped. Every time I walked, it started again. I called out, thinking maybe it was one of the rangers messing around, but there was no response. Then I saw it. Not directly, but out of the corner of my eye. Something tall, too tall, stepping behind a tree. It moved in a weird, jerky way, like it couldn't figure out how to walk right. I shined my flashlight where it went, but all I saw were pine needles and shadows. Then I remembered something one ranger once joked about. If you're ever being watched in Pine Hollow, don't stare at the trees too long. The hide behind doesn't like being seen. It didn't feel like a joke anymore. I kept moving, faster now, but every few seconds, I'd see it, always in the corner of my vision. A long shape slipping behind a trunk, a pale hand curling around bark, a face that never fully came into view. At one point, I swear I saw its eyes, two bright white circles reflecting my light, before it slid out of sight. The rangers stopped responding. I try my radio. Spotter 4 to base. Anyone copy? Static. I tried again. Spotter 4 to search team. I think someone's in the woods behind me. More static. Then whispering. Not from the radio. From the trees. A soft, breathy voice saying my name. Evan. I froze. No one here knew my name. Whatever it was, it stepped closer, leaves crunching trunk by trunk. I aimed my flashlight at the nearest tree. Something moved up it, fast, like a spider. A pale, skinny limb disappeared behind the trunk. I ran. The forest changed. I'd walked this trail before. It should have been a straight shot back to the ranger cabin, but suddenly the glow sticks disappeared. The path forked where it shouldn't. Trees I didn't recognize started appearing, ones with deep claw-like marks in the bark. I wasn't on the trail anymore, and the thing was getting closer. I could hear it moving, always behind a tree, always hiding, always waiting for me to look away. At one point, my flashlight hit a tree, and I saw something written in deep scratches. Don't look away. I aimed my flashlight at the nearest trunk. Something was peeking from behind it. The side of a face too smooth, too pale, with eyes like bright reflective circles. It hissed when the light hit it. Then it vanished behind the tree. I backed away slowly and bumped into another tree. Something touched my shoulder. I swung the flashlight behind me. Nothing. I was being herded. Every time I tried to go left, the thing would appear on that side. Every time I went right, I'd see a pale limb slide behind trunk, like it was guiding me somewhere. Eventually, the trees thinned out, opening to a small clearing. And in that clearing was a fire tower, old, rusted, abandoned. The same tower I'd heard stories about. The one people said was left behind after a ranger vanished in the 1970s. I didn't want to go near it, but the creature was now directly behind me. I could hear it crawling from tree to tree, faster, impatient. I ran to the tower and climbed the ladder, hoping whatever it was couldn't climb. Halfway up, the ladder shook violently. I looked down. The thing was at the bottom, staring straight up at me. It had a long, bony body, pale skin, and a face with no mouth. Just two huge white eyes that reflected my flashlight like mirrors. It tilted its head, then it started climbing. I barely made it. I scrambled into the cabin at the top and slammed the hatch shut. The creature hit the hatch once, then twice, then stopped. Silence. I backed into the corner, holding my flashlight like a weapon. For maybe 15 minutes, nothing happened. I thought it had given up. Then I heard scraping on the window. Slow, rhythmic scraping, like a fingertip dragged across glass. I looked. The creature was hanging upside down from the roof, its long arms stretched down the window frame. Its face was pressed against the glass, eyes glowing like animal headlights. It tilted its head again. Then it whispered, not with a mouth, but somehow through the glass. "You weren't supposed to look," and then hissed, slashing glass. And then it dropped out of sight. 20 minutes later, search and rescue found me. I was shaking, crying, barely coherent. When they checked the tower, there were long claw marks across the windows and fresh scrapes on the ladder. They made up an excuse: bear activity, heightened anxiety, night confusion. But the rangers who really knew Pine Hollow, the older ones, they told me quietly, "You saw it, the one that lives between the trees." I never went back, and I never looked directly at trees anymore, because sometimes they look back. Those were 3 of the most bone-chilling forest encounters anyone could have in the woods. A forest ranger trapped in a forgotten watchtower, surrounded by a cult that seemed to appear from nowhere. 2 friends stalked by a man who waited outside their tents, patient, relentless, and somehow knowing their names. And a volunteer who came face to face with a creature that shouldn't exist, one that moves between the trees, always watching, always waiting. The woods are darker than most people realize. Even during the day, shadows stretch farther than they should. And the silence isn't natural. Sometimes, when the wind stops, you can hear the watching, even if you're alone. If these stories taught us anything, it's that curiosity can be dangerous, and some things in the forest are better left unseen. So the next time you walk among the trees, remember, something might be following you. Something that doesn't need to run. Something that doesn't forget. And bring protection, just in case. Sleep with the lights on tonight. And if you think you're safe, think again.